superstars. Today we are going to be talking about tiered vocabulary. As you can kind of see from the title and our little picture, tiered vocabulary is learning vocabulary words that come in different tiers or different levels. We start with tier 1 down here at the bottom, which is our simpler vocabulary words, and we'll talk more about it here in this lesson, but just so we have that basic knowledge, it's more of our simpler vocabulary words. As we grow up our triangle, up our pyramid, we get more specific, more in depth, more in need for definitions. So then we have our tier 2, which, as I said, we're getting a little bit more complicated. We'll probably need that definition. We'll probably need some context. And then tier 3, which is super specific to one topic. In order to help you understand it a little bit more, we are going to put on our actor shoes and we are going to be soccer players. And we are going to think of our tiered vocabulary in terms of soccer. So don't worry, I'll walk you through it and it'll be super fun. But lace up your cleats, let's get ready to go. So we have tier 1. As I said, tier 1 is our bottom tier on our triangle. We're talking about this level right here. Tier 1 vocabulary is simple. It's understood without a definition. It's our common knowledge. The words we know because we are around every day and we hear it used in everyday conversation. When somebody says that word, we have a mental image. We know what they are talking about. We know that word. In order to, like I said, make more sense of it, we are going to talk about it in terms of soccer. So our 2 tier 1 vocabulary words for soccer, I'm sure there's quite a few, but we're only going to talk about 2. One of them is ball, and the other is field. Both of these are vocabulary words that we hear when we're talking about soccer, but they are also very common words that we hear all the time, even when we're not talking about soccer. You hear the words ball and you hear the words field, and you can immediately know what those are. I also, again, for some of my more visual learners, I want you to take a look over here at my wonderful, beautiful little soccer player over here. She is doing what I like to call a tier 1 pose. This is something that is very simple. You don't need a whole lot of knowledge. Everybody can stand on a soccer ball. It is a very common pose because tier 1 vocabulary words are very common words that we don't need a definition, don't need context for. They are words that we know when we hear them. Let us move on to tier 2. So in our tier triangle, we're talking about right here, our middle tier. Tier 2 vocabulary, as I said, we're getting a little up on the pyramid, so we're getting more complex. Usually these words are understood with a definition, but the key trick to tier 2 is this third bullet right here, is that they are applicable to a few different topics. So our vocabulary words for soccer are goal and nutmeg. Let's start with goal. So goal has 3 different meanings or definitions. One is in soccer. Within soccer, a goal is how you earn points. So I'm just going to put point right here. So that is one definition. Another definition is the actual physical being. So this thing right here is the actual net in post. So I'm just going to put net post right over here. And then our third definition is our one that is more outside of soccer. It is when you hear the definition or when you hear the word saying, oh, my goal for this year. It is what we aim for. It's our object of effort. So I'm going to put effort / what we work for. Okay? So that is goal. Notice how, again, it's not a super, super complicated word. It's more complicated than field and ball, but it's not super complicated. We do need that definition, and we probably need a little bit of context to understand the word goal and what it means in this situation. Our other word is nutmeg. So in soccer, if you're unfamiliar with it, Nutmeg is when you kick the ball between someone's legs. So I'm going to draw a little ball here, and then I'm going to say between legs. So that is our one definition, but then nutmeg is also a spice. Is used, it's almost like a cinnamony spice. So it's used in like a lot of desserts. So nutmeg, again, not a super complicated word, but you do need the definition. You need a little bit of context. You need to know how you're using this word, the definition of it, for you to truly understand the word and what it means. And again, for more of my visual learners, let's take a look over here at my beautiful, wonderful soccer player. And now she's doing a tier 2 pose. It's a little bit more complicated than just standing on the ball like tier 1 was, because tier 2 words are a little bit more complex, a little bit more complicated, but it's not super hard. It's not impossible. Let us move on to tier 3. So on our tiers, it's the very top one. So these are very complex, very specific words to one topic. So the words that we're going to talk about are very specific to soccer. We can usually understand these words with definition and context. So our words for these are offsides and a hat trick. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with soccer, you might not know what these words mean. That is kind of the point of a tier 3 word. Unless you are an expert in this topic or that subject, this might be a difficult word for you to understand. Average Joes off the street probably aren't going to know what it means. That's why we need our definition and our context, because they are very specific words. So offsides, in case you are unfamiliar, is a rule in soccer about when you are behind the other team's defense, you cannot get past the ball. So I'm going to write behind defense, no ball. And then for a hat trick, if you're unfamiliar, it is when you score 3 goals in a game. So if you've never heard of soccer before in your life, you hear these 2 words and you are probably not going to know what they mean. Let's do a quick review for our tier 1 words, ball and field. If you've never heard of soccer before, you're still going to know what those words are. Tier 2 are words goal and nutmeg. If you've never heard of soccer before, you might be familiar with those words, but you're going to need your definition, you're going to need your context to really understand them. Tier 3, if you've never heard of soccer before, you probably maybe haven't even heard of these words. It's because they are very specific, they are more complex, and we need our definition and context to understand these words. And again, as usual, our perfect, beautiful little soccer player, she's doing a tier 3 pose. If you don't know what it is, it's called a bicycle pose or a bicycle kick. So she's doing a flip in the air while she's kicking the ball. Sounds very hard because it is very hard. It's a very complicated move that our expert soccer players do. So it is an expert move for our expert words that are very specific to subjects because they are tier 3. So I do want to say a quick thank you. Here's all the information about where you can find this slide, the format, my fonts, all of that. And again, a quick review. Here's our little tier. We have tier 1 at the bottom, our very general, common knowledge words you're going to know because you hear it when you're walking down the street. Then we have tier 2, a little bit more complicated. You need a definition, probably going to need some context. And then you have tier 3 at the top, which is very specific, and you are definitely going to need a definition and context. So thank you for watching, and I hope you learned a lot.